One thing I found surprising, we found that 97% of employees reported that their mental health, their emotional well-being was negatively impacted by their manager. So almost everybody out there, their mental health was negatively impacted by their manager. A quarter of managers say that they feel that they are prepared to help with those issues. A quarter of managers get any sort of mental health training. So there's a major gap there.
We're on a 2-second news cycle, and everything is in the moment. Like, I could forget that I needed to send crayons to my kid's classroom and open my phone and order them on Amazon right now. And so there's this expectation of immediacy, but that doesn't happen in healthcare. And so when you look for a partner that can bring support, especially mental health support, into the workplace in a way that people expect to be able to get support.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization Show, the home of Googleization Nation, where we talk with HR and business thought leaders about the crazy, never normal shift going on all around us. Our goal is to bring you ways to reimagine tomorrow and explore the ever-changing convergence of people, business, and technology. Here is your host, Ira Wolf.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization Show. Thank you for being part of Googleization Nation. I'm Ira Wolf. If you think this is just another podcast, think again. This is the voice of the most important conversations on the future of work confronting business leaders and people today. My goal is to bring you ways to reimagine tomorrow and explore the ever-changing convergence of business, people, and technology. In other words, to help you make sense of this messy, weird, unfamiliar, and fascinating world that we seem to be careening toward. Today is the first day of Mental Health Awareness Month. And by no coincidence, we're going to be talking about how the mental health crisis, not only in this country, but around the world, is not just impacting our personal lives, but our work lives too. So perk up, employers, managers, and HR professionals. What you're about to hear isn't just touchy-feely stuff. In just a few moments, I will be joined by two experts from Headspace, David Wright and Jessy to talk about their fascinating but very troubling 2024 Workplace State of Mind report. And FYI, for those of you that may not be familiar with Headspace, let me describe them in their own words. Headspace's mission is to provide every person access to lifelong mental health support. And they want to make that happen no matter what your background or experience. We'll hear a little bit more from David and Jessy about that in just a few minutes. And as you know, I'd like to back up my words with data. Just yesterday, there was a report released by Statista, and they found that 3 out of 4 Americans reported that they struggled with mental health in some form or another in the past 12 months. Half of U.S. adults have experienced stress or anxiety in the past year. 29% reported feeling lonely or have social isolation, and 34% stated that they have gone through a depressive phase. And get this, just 22% or 1 out of 5 reported not having any of those issues listed above, just 1 out of 5. In a separate analysis, Statista found that the psychological effects from the COVID-19 pandemic are fading. Symptoms of anxiety and depression are roughly twice what they were just 5 years ago in April of 2019. Let me remind you about another fascinating, insightful, but troubling survey. Avanti's 2024 Everywhere Work Report. One of the most startling findings from their report, the Avanti report, is that at least 40% of workers surveyed said they would quit their job to get more flexibility. More troubling, 1/3 of the leaders said they would quit too. And 55% of women said that they would turn down a job offer if forced to return to their office full time. So to learn more about Avanti and also you'll hear a lot more about the State of the Mind report, go to adaptabilitytoolkit.com 2024 Everywhere Work. That's Adaptability Toolkit 2024 Everywhere Work. You can check the show notes too to be able to get access to reports. Now, let's bring David and Jessy on to the Googleization stage. They are both sales solution architects at Headspace. They support Headspace's commercial growth initiatives, focus on sales, market strategy, clinical strategy, and product evolution. Let's welcome David and Jessy. Big round of applause for you guys. First day of mental health awareness. I'm not sure we should be celebrating that, but in other ways that I'm so grateful that you're here to be able to help launch that. And as you heard, lots of surveys out. I'm sure we're going to hear more, but your Headspace State of the Mind report, when some of those numbers are just, as I said, fascinating but terrifying. So let's start. Let's hear a little bit more about what I made a brief intro into Headspace, but tell us a little bit more, because I know there's a lot more to you guys than what I did in 2 lines. And then a little bit about what you do with the company, with Headspace, and then we'll dig into the report.
Yeah. Thanks, Ira. Thanks for the wonderful introduction, and thanks for having us both on your podcast today. It's really exciting to be here. Looking forward to talking more about mental health, especially as we kick off Mental Health Month. So just a little bit about Headspace. Headspace has been helping people since 2010. And if you ask most people, they'll tell you that they know Headspace as the meditation and mindfulness app. We are certainly that, and now we are so much more. We merged with Ginger in 2021. Ginger pioneered digital behavioral health coaching. And in 2022, we launched Headspace EAP. So now Headspace is a complete mental health solution, combining proven digital content with digital behavioral health coaching. We have psychotherapy, we deliver psychiatry, and we wrap it all with EAP services. So we're redefining mental health care for today's consumer. Headspace is committed to providing care, not just for people who meet formal criteria for a psychiatric diagnosis, but for everyone, for people experiencing the everyday stressors of life across the spectrum of need. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm muted there, which I commonly do. Before we get there, and we want to dig into the data in the report, but you mentioned EAP, and we've had a number of conversations with that. We had Gabriella Kellerman-Rosen, who wrote about Tomorrow Mind not too long. I think we had her on in the fall. And her and Marty Seligman released a huge report about some of the challenges with the EAP, with the structure. Have you seen any uptick, any increase in utilization with employees because of the app, because of some of the work that you're doing? Because prior to that, I mean, services, there's certainly a stigma. That's why we're talking about Mental Health Awareness Month. There's certainly a stigma with mental health. But, average is about 3% of employees use EAP. Have you seen utilizing Headspace's services in the app an uptick, a higher utilization?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. It's pretty foundational to our approach to shifts, instead of thinking of mental health as sort of that crisis level episode of care that traditional EAPs often are promoted as, to thinking of mental health as this lifelong continuum. And so we've built our tools around the ability to engage employees in a way that is meaningful to them, that is welcoming to them, that really does reduce the stigma. And so because we do have a direct-to-consumer application as well, there's a really good chance that the employers that we're working with have employees that have already engaged in Headspace, know the brand, have seen our partnerships. And that has done a lot to open the door for people to come into our system that is a full spectrum system. So really making it easy to engage, doing it in a way that's where that member is, that employee is at the time of need. And so we really do see increased utilization across the spectrum of our offerings.
Yeah, just from, sorry, David, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to underscore that. And in a world where EAPs have been historically underutilized, how many EAPs can actually say they're exciting? I think Jessy touched on it. Our brand is bringing people in the door. And I just want to highlight one data point. We launched with over 30, our EAP with over 30 companies in January. And we had great reports about initial utilization, about getting people in the front door, which is really the challenge of getting people to engage, is getting them to take that first step, open the door, look around. We had one company report back to us that in the month of January, they had more people sign up for their EAP. They had 3 times as many people sign up for Headspace EAP in January than they had with their prior EAP in 3 years. Just imagine that. And that's the power of our brand, our welcoming front door, trying to be stigma-free, be colorful. And I think that just speaks to there's significant opportunity there if you present it right. And I think we're presenting it in the market right.
I can see that. I mean, I know there's a part of family members that recently wanted to do some family therapy, pursue that both individually for different things that are going on in their life, and they are on waiting lists. So it is included, and I don't know if it officially went through the EAP, but they have benefits. They have healthcare benefits for this. So they got beyond the stigma. What are people going to think? I need to do this. They got that covered. They pick up the phone and they call 30 providers and can't get the care, and they're on a waiting list. One is the stress, the anxiety, all those issues continue. But then oftentimes by the time it happens, it's, oh, no, we're good. And they just don't get it. So the fact is that with your app and what I understand about, I got a lot to learn about Headspace, but it's available. I mean, to be able to have it there. And I think you said this at the beginning, it's when you need it, it's there.
Yeah.
We hear that story over and over and over again. If you muster up the courage and the energy to reach out and say, hey, let me get an appointment, and you're told I've got to wait 6 weeks, that's the crisis in the mental health field today. That's the access crisis. And it's many variables have created it. And the stats say that about a quarter of people who reach that point then don't ever show up for that first appointment. They've given up, they've found help somewhere else, or they've just they continue to suffer. We've got a lot of people out there in our world struggling with these mental health issues because they can't get in. And we've taken a different approach to redefine how do we deliver mental health care. And so we're getting people in and getting them started with getting the help early and getting them quality care.
Yeah, I think that's the Statista graphic and study was powerful. I mean, it's like, because you can read one of them that and there's that the number of people that are stressed out from COVID just 3-4 years ago is literally, it's half. I mean, it's just following. So they say, hey, we're in a better state, until you look at where we were in April of 2019, and there's twice as many people that are saying on a regular basis they're stressed, anxious, lonely, depressed. It's startling. So let's dig into your report, because again, soon as I saw that, there was just some eye-popping, super troubling stats similar to what you're coming up with, and then you dug in a little deeper. So let's talk about that. David, tell us a little bit more about, I guess, the background on the report. I know you were heavily involved with that. A quick summary, and then we'll dig into, I've got some questions on some of the stats that just popped out.
Good. Okay. So this is the 6th annual Headspace report on workplace mental health, and a very appropriate topic for the first day of Mental Health Month. In our 2024 Workplace State of Mind report, Workplace State of Mind, We surveyed more than 2,000 employees, from frontline workers, managers, benefits leaders, and company leaders, including CEOs. And we were assessing their perspective on the state of mental health at work today. So it's a good survey across the market, many different industries, good sample size, good cross-section of employees, and we have some informative findings. So this year's report specifically focused on a couple of things. One, on how work stress is seeping into the personal lives of employees, and two, how employees' relationships at work with coworkers, with managers, with leaders plays a significant role in their overall mental health and their emotional well-being. So based on the data, it's clear that in order to improve mental health, employee mental health, employers should really consider investing in resources that build positive work environments while building the mental resilience of their workforce. So, the workplace today is not as separate from our personal lives as it once was. For many of us, our home, like me, our home is now our office. It's easier than ever with technology to bring work home with us every day. And so employers now have a growing responsibility to consider how they support employees at work, how that impacts their lives outside of work. So by recognizing the motivations of employees and their desire to be their best selves at work and outside of work, leaders and companies have an opportunity today to create really healthier, more empowering workplaces that, while driving business results, also better support the mental health of their teams. So Jessy and I are excited today to speak with you more in depth about the findings of the report and what companies can do about it.
I mean, in following in line with that, I just interviewed somebody yesterday, and their company, fortunately, was 30% or 35% remote when the pandemic struck. So they at least had some of that basic, some of that infrastructure. Most companies were about 2 to 5% remote. Today, they're 82% remote. Mm-hmm. The gap, though, it's not like, oh, they know what they're doing. Is there was a huge change. There's all those managers, and again, the thing that people forget about is, yes, people want to work from home, but that means they don't. It's not that they're bringing work home; it's there. There is no separation, and people, we're still fumbling through this. This is still new. Jessy, what are some? And I asked this question yesterday, and it really struck home. Is from the report, what surprised you the most? What came back and it got, whoa, we didn't expect that. And then a kind of a follow-up question to that, and we can go to David to find out the same thing. But then a follow-up question to that is like, what terrified you most about that result? So let's start the first one. What were some of the stats that just were, whoa, we didn't expect this?
I think when we didn't expect it, it was the magnitude of the numbers. Like, we were asking the right questions around how is work stress impacting your life outside of work. And that sentiment is not new. I mean, we've long held in high regard a workaholic culture. And we've recognized that there are downstream effects of that type of grind and work. And we have accepted those results of impacting our health and our relationships and all of those things. And so while that's like a recognized sort of trade-off there, I think when we look at the numbers in this report, they're staggering, to put it in front of you. So some of them here, we said 77% of employees say that stress has negatively impacted their physical health. 75% say that stress has caused them to gain weight. Also, not moving around from their home office is not helpful either. And then this one actually really struck home. 71% say work stress caused a personal relationship to end. And that really hit me. It's like we bring so much of ourselves to work, and it is important to our identity. But the fact that the stress that we're feeling there can really impact a very important relationship in your life, that's scary. And so the numbers are really jarring. And so you take it from, thinking of these things conceptually to seeing the stats on a piece of paper. And if that is not motivating to us and to employers to do something about it, I'm not sure what is. I would say that the other stat that I found absolutely terrifying and sad is that 37% of employees surveyed indicated that work stress had a significant impact on serious mental health conditions like substance use and suicidal ideation. So those things are life-threatening, life-altering, scenarios that an employer can't ignore. So this is all now written down on a piece of paper. It's right in front of you. And I think employers need to accept the profound impact that their work environment, the work stress that is on their employees, contributes to these really important, serious things. That's my long answer to that one.
Wow, great answer. So, David.
Oh gosh. Yeah, thanks for raising the bar, Jessy. So what's frightening I think frightening and concerning. So a lot of stats, I share the same concerns with Jessy. I think that 37% of people report serious mental illness, substance use, suicidal ideation from work stress. One thing I found surprising, we found that 97% of employees reported that their mental health, their emotional well-being was negatively impacted by their manager. So almost everybody out there, their mental health was negatively impacted by their manager. And that, I wouldn't have thought that was so high, but it speaks to the vital role of the relationship with your manager. If you think your manager is upset with you, or if your manager says, hey, let's meet today at 1 and they don't tell you why, that has negative effects on my mental health. What is this about? What's going on this afternoon? I think a concerning stat, and I may get the categories wrong, but half of workers actually do turn to their managers for some sort of mental health support. I think the number is 48%. And but on the other side, about 24%, so a quarter of managers say that they feel that they are prepared to help with those issues. A quarter of managers get any sort of mental health training. So there's a major gap there where people are reaching out for help. Half of people are reaching out to their managers for help, and the managers, for the most part, feel unprepared and ill-equipped to help people with whatever the issue is. And we don't expect managers to be therapists, but we do expect managers to, and trust me, I know managers have a ton on their plate. They have to know everything from all the emergency codes to how to program the computer to, everything. And we're not asking them to be therapists, just to know how to start a conversation, how to assess when somebody needs help, and then where to go. And I think there's a big gap there that we can address.
Yeah, this may be a left field, a question out of left field. So if your report hasn't covered this or is not there, then just say that, and it's just something we need to pursue. But as we talk about the responsibility of managers, and again, yesterday we were talking a little bit about the collaboration tools that people weren't properly trained, and I'm a strong believer that you can have strong collaboration remotely. It's just that people aren't familiar enough with the tools and how to use those tools remotely versus in person. And we talked about virtual. How do you engage people? How do you read that? But your response just raised this question: is old school managers, and there's a lot of them, still a lot of baby boomers and Gen X. And I know people always think Gen X is young, but Gen X is now in their 50s. Actually, Gen X is now eligible for retirement programs. They're the oldest Gen X is 55 years old. And so there's a lot of baby boomers and Gen X that are still managing, grew up in a time when you didn't bring personal stuff into work. Mm-hmm. You come to work, you stay focused, keep the personal stuff out, and now it's literally virtually impossible to do that. Did the report did you find anything in the report? Was there any difference between old and young, or certain industries that might have an easier time or a worse time at this? Because I didn't see the data, from the behind. I saw what was, publicly. But is there a breakdown? I mean, is there a difference between older managers and younger managers, certain industries and other industries?
Our survey did not dive to that level of detail, so I don't have the numbers.
Next year.
Yes, for next year. But I think we talk with a lot of leaders. We talk with a lot of our clients. We talk a lot in the market, and I think you're spot on. There are differences, and I think there are always exceptions, but I think there are differences. I think the older managers, you're exactly right, are trained, have been raised in an environment and frankly raised in households where there's less openness about mental health issues, and they live their lives that way. And I think younger people today, there is more openness. And my adolescent kids, my 20-year-old son, they talk much more openly about mental health than I ever did when I was their age. And so I do think there is that difference. And I think that the challenge is how do you help that generation of managers who are less comfortable talking about it, or it's taboo. I just want to stick to, the processes and protocols. How do you support them to be more open? And I think there is openness. I think they can learn and engage in those ways to talk about mental health issues in the workplace. But I think it's a matter of breaking outside of that comfort zone and potentially breaking some of those cognitive rules that they've had for themselves for years.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just to build on that really quick. I think that there's actually a universal application of the value of leaders bringing mental health into the workplace and talking about their own mental health struggles and leading by example. So even in those industries, or for those managers that maybe, wired a little bit differently to approach that topic, when they see leadership, saying it's okay to talk about this in the workplace, and I'm going to do that, and we're going to create an environment that is safe for people to share. Again, with that shared understanding that the door doesn't close at work and then everything's, all my work stress is gone. And the moment I sit down at my computer, my home stress isn't gone. I'm still, thinking about my teenager and the situation I had with her the other day. So we have to realize that, A, those lines are blurred, but B, leaders have a really outsized opportunity to elevate this discussion and start driving a culture where people are more comfortable talking about mental health and accessing the mental health resources and programs that these organizations are putting in place.
And Ira, we do have a stat about that. So the good news is,
Yeah.
We'll bring it full circle. The percentage of employees who are reporting that their company's leaders are talking about mental health in the workplace has actually more than doubled since 2020. So in 2020, about a third of leaders were talking about mental health in the workplace. In 2024, that number is 90%. So exactly what Jessy's saying, if we can model that from leadership, you will see that trickle down and become more of a building those conversations into the fabric of the workplace.
Going into what you said, I mean, I've got a 4 and a 2-year-old grandchild, but I also have a 24-year-old grandchild, and very, very open now. She graduated. She actually graduates this week with a psychology degree. Wow. And so obviously very attuned to that, but it's always been more sensitive and willing to share that. But I'm also an adjunct, so working with 18 to 22-year-olds. And it's amazing because in the beginning of each semester, I will get a report of how many need accommodations. Now, I can tell you, this is a long time ago. When I was in college, we would never bring that up, because what if that goes on our record? How would we get into professional school if that was on our record? We didn't want anyone to know that. But it's not only managers, it's professors. It's how do you deal with that. You don't want to overstep. I know there's a lot of professors that think that kids just need better emotional intelligence. They just need better skills. And that's true, but they're 18 years old. They're living in a really stressful environment. And professors, teachers, it's not just parents.
Mhm.
Everybody needs to be better equipped how we manage this. I told you at the beginning, this goes really, really fast, and we're at the bottom of the hour already. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. We're with Jessy, Paul, and David Wright from Headspace. We're, I won't say celebrating, but this is the first day of Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are celebrating that. We're talking about it. We're not celebrating about the stats. But when we come back, we're going to talk about what can organizations, what can companies do about it. You know, what are some of the steps they can take? So stay tuned. We'll be right back in 1 minute.
Are your employees feeling stuck and just showing up for a paycheck? Is your workforce working harder to get back to normal than adapting to the future? It's time to help them break their addiction to certainty and develop a growth mindset. Developed by one of the world's top-rated future of work thought leaders, AQ Plus Mindset is a powerful tool to help your employees embrace change, adapt faster, and grow on the job. Conveniently delivered to any smartphone or laptop and easy to digest 5 to 10 minute lessons. Managers can sit back and watch employee attitude shift towards growth and innovation in just 30 days. Are you ready to help your employees thrive in this ever-changing, never normal world? Encourage them to show more grit, resilience, adaptability, and unlock their potential? The journey to a growth-filled future starts with a growth mindset. Visit aqplusmindset.com or call 484-373-4300.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Thank you for being part of Googlization Nation. We are here today. We're celebrating the first day of Mental Health Awareness Day. Again, we're not celebrating mental health or mental illness, but hopefully celebrating the opportunities that are out there to help people, to bring some of the really terrifying stats and direction that we're headed, and provide some benefit. So we are. We talked a lot about we started to talk a lot about the Headspace Workplace State of Mind report. We got into some of the stats. I think, to me, while the 77% or 3 out of 5 people have experienced some mental health, we hear that with multiple studies. The 97% of people who said that they report their, or that they want to report their mental well-being to their manager, but the managers don't feel prepared to deal with that, to me, was the most striking, part. So let's go there. Let's dig into that a little bit. What are some ways that organizations can help their managers, or managers maybe have to help themselves in some cases? What are some ways that they can do that?
Well, I'll start. So I think one thing we already touched on is making it okay for managers to talk about mental health issues and be open and be inviting to that. And I think the first way is what Jessy was saying is with senior leaders opening that conversation. And it's not about if I'm not disclosing every personal struggle or personal issue that I'm dealing with and disclosing too much, but leaders being open and transparent, letting people know that, even I feel stress and anxiety and have difficulty sleeping, and I need help sometimes. We're all human beings. And we find that has a positive ripple effect to help really reduce stigma, mental health stigma, and enable people to trust the organization that, the organization does care, and they're not going to use this information against me. But it's how do you start making mental health part of the company conversation? Like I said, weaving it into the fabric. So just like we talk about the aches and pains of every day, we can talk about the stressors and the defeats of everyday life. So I think that's one way. And one way that we see this at Headspace, honestly, is our CEO, Russ Glass, has spoken very openly about feeling like he has imposter syndrome Imagine that, like our CEO discloses to us, he feels like we're all looking at him and not believing that he should be where he is. And he's really been helped by the content that Headspace provides. So I think that sort of example sets the tone for the rest of the organization and makes it permissible for frontline people, for managers, for the executive team to follow suit. And there are many, many people in the world, famous people, Maya Angelou, Tom Hanks, Lady Gaga, Jack Welch from GM, very famous for struggling with these issues. So I think I would say that enabling managers by setting an example from the top is one of the best things you can do.
You took me immediately back to 4 years ago. We were all in lockdown, and there were a number of platforms that started to interview CEOs or leaders of getting through, what they did. But I remember one, and I don't remember his name, but he was a general. He led some of the forces over in Afghanistan and Iraq, and it was really about leadership. But because everything was virtual, he was in his office, and right in the office, all of a sudden he's talking about some of his struggles, and then his granddaughter comes in, and then the dog barks, and even though they weren't necessarily related to the mental health, although what he was talking about, it showed them as real people, as authentic, and it sort of brought that shield down that they had. And that was the one thing I said at that time when people said, well, what lesson do you hope we learned? And it was about authenticity and transparency. And I know those words get overused, now, and everybody takes them for granted. And now it's like, okay, I am authentic because I followed these 3 steps. No, you're not authentic because you did those 3 steps.
Yeah, just reading them.
Acted like you were authentic, but you were not authentic. But we sort of lost that again. Through all the last, but that was so powerful. And as soon as you said that about your CEO sharing that, that was really a moment in time. And now there are many, many companies, and I'm sure you're familiar with them, and many of them are probably your clients. That's why they're accepting this. Are doing that.
Yeah,
are doing that. Jessy, what are you seeing? What are some ways that people can support or change? Who's the driver of this? Because often this, and again, we'll go back to Tomorrow Mind and Kellerman and Gabriella Kellerman's book, and they talked about that was like it becomes an HR thing to drive wellness, well-being, mental health, but it's not necessarily on the strategy side. Who's the driver? Who should be the driver of creating this change? Who are the change agents?
So there's about 100 ways that I could start answering that question.
Good. Let's go with the couple.
Yeah. We talked about leadership modeling, that example, and I think that helps inform strategy, that you're thinking about your teams in a different way. What you brought up about humanizing folks and being able to bring their whole selves to work, that yes, they're a dog owner, yes, they're a parent. So how do you recreate that in the workplace? I think employee resource groups is a great way to do that, to, sort of build a commonality of shared interest with employees. I think that as you think about, tasking your HR and benefits team to build this wellness strategy, that they need to think about looking at it a little bit differently. There's some tried and true tactics that have worked for a really long time, honestly, that I think in the physical health space that we've learned, honestly, for decades. The fact that we need to get upstream of conditions so that they don't become chronic in nature and become very much more expensive. And so I think a focus on mental health needs to be that upstream application, that people have the tools and resources to build the resiliency skills. And so as they're evaluating partners to help them do that, looking at all the variety of ways that there are for an individual to engage, where they can be met at the moment of need, where they can engage with mental health care in a way that we work today. Like everything, like we're on a 2-second news cycle, and everything is in the moment. Like I could forget that I needed to send crayons to my kids' classroom and open my phone and order them on Amazon right now. And so there's this expectation of immediacy, but that doesn't happen in healthcare. And so when you look for a partner that can bring support, especially mental health support, into the workplace in a way that people expect to be able to get support in that instant manner, I think that permeates. I think that really helps show that the employer's, doing right by you. So a lot of different things there. I think I went all over the place, but David, I can see you want to jump in there too.
Yeah. The wheels are turning.
Yeah.
You can see that? Oh man. No, I think I totally agree with those, Jessy. And I think we started our conversation talking about like the changing workplace today and how work impacts our personal stress and our personal mental health. And I think it really starts as well with walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And part of that's like having really clear boundaries between your life and work. And that's on the employer to do. And some ways employers can do that. So I think some really simple, practical ways to protect people's time, shorten meetings, or make sure you're ending meetings on time, or building in buffers between meetings. I think things we all have heard about, minimizing meetings, but it's also, don't say, don't work off hours, but have your manager sending emails to you at 10 at night, or, on a Sunday evening or a Saturday morning. I think that we have to really enforce those expectations. And I think the other things that a company can do are really build some of these features into the fabric. Like at Headspace, we will often start big company meetings or small team meetings with a 1-minute meditation. And the message that sends is powerful, that mental health matters, that we're going to take a moment here. Other companies send that message in a variety of different ways through those sorts of practices, but also doing things like having an on-site counselor available. That sends them like that person can become the face of mental health at your work site. And that keeps these issues in the forefront of employees' minds. Deputizing frontline workers, doing things like having mental health first aid classes, and making sure that people know, hey, it's your peers on your team who you can talk to. That can often help people feel more comfortable. But people see that the company has built in this support and they care about your mental health. Survey after survey shows employees want their employer to be concerned and help with mental health, build a workplace culture of mental health. Many companies don't know how to do that. And why would they? They're not experts in it. So that's where we can support, coming in and helping really create that culture so that people feel like their mental health is supported. And that goes such a long way to loyalty to a company, to helping things like retention and turnover, burnout, just the innumerable positive impacts that can have really are powerful.
We are unfortunately approaching the end. And I always hate this part because it seems like we're always just getting started, and there's so many more questions. So would love to continue this conversation throughout the year, have you back, and find out some of the work that you're doing. But I want to get to the lightning round to learn a little bit more about each of you first. So either of you can choose to go first. But the first question is one of our favorites. When when it's crunch time and you need to just break away, who's your go-to artist or go-to type of music or go-to band?
David, you have one in mind?
I do. Yeah, I was thinking maybe you could.
You want me to? So I would think I'd go to a genre more than a specific artist, and that's sort of late 90s, early 2000s hip hop, which just really gets, it's like, all right, heads down, let's go. Feel the drive of those beats, so to speak, and it's uplifting and gets you going. So that
That's interesting because I take the opposite approach. I kind of slow it down, and I'm a fan of indie folk music, which is kind of a slower, more serious tone. And my go-to artist is Gregory Alan Isakov, who just has a lot of deep songs. And I will get on my bike and put on slow music and pedal across the city, and that helps me unplug and unwind.
Yeah,
I'm going to wind it down. Brandy Carlisle is my go-to.
Yeah, but all great choices. I think all of those that you mentioned are the first available. My go-to is always Santana or Santana-like big bands. It's Earth, Wind and Fire, Chicago. It's I don't have a down moment. Anyway, real quickly, second question: if you had the opportunity to go to dinner or meet, coffee, Starbucks with somebody present or past, who might it be?
I would I'll jump in, Jesse, give you a moment to think. I would choose David Letterman, the comedian. I think he is an endlessly interesting person. I hear that he is really he's a tough nut to crack, and the psychologist in me would be interested in that side. And also just hearing he's met a lot of people. He's got a lot of interesting perspectives in life, and hearing some of the stories and how he thinks about the world. I think that would be a very interesting dinner.
Definitely.
Great. I would say Steven Spielberg. I would be fascinated to hear how he sort of crafts his movies and brings such a humanity to the big screen. And again, I'm sure the stories that he could tell are just phenomenal, of those behind the scenes.
And all unique. These are the first times these have come to the table.
Ira, who's on your list?
Gosh, only because we just visited Dallas and we went down to JFK.
That's powerful.
Which would be JFK, and the other one would be probably my grandfather. My grandfather passed away. One passed away when I was 9. One passed away 10 years before I was born. And really to get to know them because didn't have that opportunity. Yeah. So, but thank you for asking. What's the best way to get a hold of each of you and to learn more get more information from Headspace?
Probably to find us, we're both on LinkedIn. I think if you just type in our names in Headspace, I think that's probably the easiest way. Send us a message and we can link up with you that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Same to you, Jessy.
Yes.
Up on LinkedIn. We will put your LinkedIn contact information in the show notes. We'll also put a link, as been scrolling across the bottom of the screen throughout the show. We'll also put it to the Workplace State of Mind report. I highly recommend everybody download that. We appreciate you being here for another episode of Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Thank you for helping us celebrate the first day of Mental Health Awareness Day. We certainly raised the stakes today and provided some opportunities to be able to grow that. Thank you for being part of Googlization Nation. Thank you to Avanti for sponsoring this episode. And until next week, don't let the shift hit your plan.
Thanks for watching Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Be sure to listen to the podcast and follow us on YouTube. This show was produced and edited by Hilton Productions.